I used to be somebody, a tech visionary who co-founded a $15 million company from a cramped Seattle garage. My partner, Jason, and I were unstoppable, turning our wild ideas into cutting-edge battery innovations. Investors flocked to us, and Voltix became a name synonymous with progress. We had it all, or so I thought. But success has a way of making friends turn into rivals. One cold December morning, I walked into the boardroom, expecting to celebrate our latest breakthrough. Instead, I left with a cardboard box and a sense of betrayal that cut deeper than I'd ever imagined. Jason, the guy I once trusted like a brother, had sided with the board, eyes to me from the very company we built together. Homeless and jobless, I pitched a tent near Lake Union, eating canned beans and nursing shattered pride. While Jason thrived in the spotlight, I drowned in my regrets. Each night, I stared at the city lights, questioning every decision I had made, until one day, something extraordinary happened. A letter from Tesla. It wasn't just a job offer. It was a lifeline. A second chance to prove I wasn't just a washed-up founder, but a visionary who still had fuel left in the tank. Granger, the no-nonsense Tesla exec, saw in me what I'd almost forgotten, a drive to innovate and change the world. Now, I'm back in the game, working with a team that challenges and inspires me. But just when I thought I'd buried the past, Jason reached out, asking for help to save the company that once threw me away. Can I really move forward without looking back? Or is redemption tied to facing the one person who broke me? One thing's for sure, I'm not the man I used to be. And this time, I'm playing by my own rules. I still remember the first time I walked into the small, dingy office space on the corner of Elm Street in downtown Seattle. It was nothing more than a rundown cubicle with creaky floors and flickering lights. My business partner, Jason, and I rented it for next to nothing. We didn't care. To us, it was our launch pad, a place where ideas would thrive and dreams would take shape. Back then, I was just a guy with a vision, creating sustainable, innovative battery technology that could change the way we store and use energy. I had worked as a junior engineer at a mid-sized tech company for 5 years before deciding I'd had enough of building someone else's dreams. Jason, my college buddy from MIT, felt the same. Together, we pooled our savings and took a leap. We called our company Voltix Innovations. For the first few months, we did everything ourselves, coding, testing, prototyping, even making coffee runs. We'd work till 3 a.m., fueled by stale pizza and caffeine, chasing that elusive breakthrough. We often joked that we'd either become tech moguls or sleep-deprived maniacs. Things changed when we secured our first patent, a breakthrough in lithium-ion efficiency. It caught the attention of a venture capitalist from Silicon Valley, Mark Richardson. He flew in, took one look at our prototype, and wrote us a check for $500,000. We couldn't believe it. Suddenly, we could afford real offices, hire staff, and develop our product without worrying about the power getting cut off. The company grew fast, maybe too fast. Within 2 years, Voltix Innovations was valued at over $15 million. We had a sleek office overlooking Lake Washington, a team of 50 brilliant minds, and partnerships with automotive giants like Ford and GM. We were even in talks with NASA for specialized battery units. Life was surreal. I started to feel like the king of the world. Interviews with tech magazines, speaking gigs at conferences, even an invitation to the White House's Innovation Summit. My face was on the cover of Tech Innovator magazine with the headline, "The Next Elon Musk?" I cut that out and framed it. But the higher you climb, the harder you fall. I didn't see it coming. How could I? Jason and I were the heart of the company. Or at least, I thought we were. One evening, I was wrapping up late, just finishing a conference call with a supplier from Austin, when Jason walked in. His face was pale, hands fidgeting. I thought he was sick. Instead, he handed me a legal document. "What the hell is this?" I asked, flipping through the pages. His words were flat, rehearsed. "It's a notice of termination. The board voted. You're out." My mind went blank. I looked at him, searching for a sign that this was some kind of joke, but his eyes wouldn't meet mine. "What do you mean, out?" "This is my company. We built this together." His jaw clenched. "They think you're too volatile, too unpredictable. Mark and investors feel like you're risking too much with the Tesla deal. The Tesla deal. I had been pushing for months to collaborate with Tesla on a new electric grid project. It was ambitious, risky, but potentially revolutionary. Apparently, the board didn't agree. I couldn't believe Jason had sided with them. We had always been a team, brothers in innovation. But in that moment, I realized our visions had diverged somewhere along the line. Jason wanted safe, steady growth. I wanted to push boundaries. In the end, the board wanted stability, and Jason wanted power. I didn't fight it. Maybe I should have, but when the people you trust turn on you, it guts your spirit. I packed my things that night, a few framed photos, my MIT diploma, and the tech innovator cover. The guard on the way out didn't even look at me. My phone buzzed with missed calls and texts from our employees, some confused, some angry. I couldn't bear to answer. I drove aimlessly through Seattle, not sure where to go. My apartment felt tainted with memories of Voltics, so I just kept driving until I hit the edge of the city. I ended up at Lake Wenatchee, a place I used to camp as a kid. I had nothing but my car and a duffel bag, so I pitched a small tent by the lakeside. For the first time in years, I was alone, completely and utterly alone. I sat by the water, staring at the ripples, trying to piece together how I had lost everything I'd spent years building. Nights were the hardest. I'd hear rustling in the woods and jump at every noise, unaccustomed to the raw, unfiltered darkness. I ate out of cans. The cold beans reminded me of those early startup days when we couldn't afford real meals. I wondered if Jason felt any remorse, or if he was already too busy playing the CEO. One night, while I sat by the fire, I caught sight of the tech innovator cover peeking out from my duffel bag. I pulled it out, crumpled and stained, and stared at my own confident face, the next Elon Musk. I wanted to tear it apart, but something stopped me. Maybe a part of me still believed in that guy. That's when it hit me. I wasn't angry about losing the company. I was angry because I had lost myself. I let the power and success blind me. I stopped listening, stopped taking risks for the right reasons. I wasn't just betrayed by Jason and the board. I had betrayed my own vision. I leaned back against the tent, tears streaming down my face. It wasn't just a company I had lost. It was a dream, a partnership, and a part of myself that I didn't know how to get back. I stayed there for weeks, sometimes not speaking a single word all day, just listening to the wind and the birds, reflecting on everything that went wrong. I had built a $15 million empire and watched it slip through my fingers because I thought I was untouchable. Then one morning, just as the fog lifted over the lake, I decided it was time to move on. I couldn't live in that tent forever. I packed up, threw the duffel bag in my car, and drove back to the city with no plan, just a desire to start over. That was when I saw the letter waiting for me at my old P.O. box. It was from Tesla. The letter from Tesla felt like a mirage in the desert, a glint of hope when I had almost given up. I just stared at it for a while, turning the envelope over my hands as if it might disappear any second. It was crumpled, like it had been sitting there for days, lost among the junk mail. The P.O. box was something I'd set up when Voltics Innovations first took off, a place for business correspondence. After everything that happened, I hadn't bothered checking it. I almost missed this one. My fingers shook as I tore it open. Inside was a neatly folded piece of Tesla letterhead, crisp and formal. Dear Mr. Harper, we are reaching out to discuss a potential partnership based on your recent innovations in lithium-ion efficiency. Your work has come to our attention through industry reports and patent filings. We would like to arrange a meeting at our Fremont headquarters to discuss this in further detail. Best regards, Elliot Granger, Senior Director, Tesla Energy Projects. I read it 3 times to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. It didn't make sense. The world knew I was fired from Voltics. My name was mud in the tech community. The press had spun it as a cautionary tale, a brilliant mind ruined by ambition. Jason had painted me as reckless, a visionary who couldn't stay grounded. And yet, Tesla wanted to meet. I sat down on the curb outside the post office, the early morning chill seeping through my thin jacket. Fremont. That was almost 1,000 miles from Seattle. I checked the date, 3 days ago. Could this still be valid? I couldn't call them from my beat-up flip phone. My smartphone had been one of the first casualties when I lost my savings. The tent was still set up by Lake Wenatchee, but I didn't care. I drove straight back there, packed my few belongings, and threw them into the trunk. The car's engine groaned in protest when I turned the key. I couldn't risk breaking down halfway, so I made a quick stop at Pete's auto shop. Pete was an old guy with oil-stained hands and a quick temper. I'd done some freelance engineering work for him back when Voltix was still a dream. He took one look at me and raised an eyebrow. "Harper, you look like you've been dragged through hell. Need a tune-up?" "Just an oil change," I mumbled, "and maybe check the tires." He glanced at my car, then back at me. "Where you headed?" "California." He gave a low whistle. "You in trouble?" I forced a laugh. "Not yet." Pete didn't pry any further, just nodded and got to work. I watched as he maneuvered beneath the car. The familiar sound of metal clanking against metal. I wonder if anyone at Voltix even knew where I was. Did they care? Jason probably didn't. Last I heard, he'd installed himself as CEO, riding high on the success of our contract with Ford. While Pete worked, I grabbed a cup of coffee from the gas station next door. It tasted burnt, but it was hot, and it made me feel human. I couldn't help but wonder if this meeting would be the turning point or just another dead end. Pete wiped his hands on a rag as I returned. "Change the oil. Tires are good. You're set." I handed him a crumpled 20. He looked at it, then at me. "Keep it. You'll need it more than I do." It was the most compassion I'd felt from anyone in months. I gave him a nod, too choked up to speak. As I pulled out a lot, he waved from the garage door, and I couldn't help but feel like I was leaving behind the last familiar piece of my old life. The drive to California was endless. The silence was unbearable. So I tuned into some talk radio, mostly political rants and pop culture gossip. My thoughts kept drifting back to the day I got fired. The betrayal still burned like a fresh wound. I couldn't understand how Jason had changed so much. Or maybe it was me. Maybe success had twisted us both. I stopped overnight at a rest area near Redding. I couldn't afford a motel, so I slept in the car, hunched over the steering wheel. My back ached, and the air was so cold I could see my breath. I stared at the Tesla letter on the dashboard, tracing the words with my finger. I didn't know what I'd say to them. I didn't even know if I had the right to claim credit for the work I'd done. Voltix owned the patents now. Legally, I had nothing. By the time I reached Fremont, I was running on fumes, literally and figuratively. The Tesla headquarters was an imposing glass structure, gleaming like a beacon of innovation. I parked in a side lot, checked my reflection in the rearview mirror, and tried to smooth down my messy hair. I looked like I'd been dragged out of a ditch, but I couldn't afford a new suit or even a decent shave. I approached the reception desk, trying to look confident. A woman in a sleek black dress glanced up from her screen. "Can I help you?" "I'm here to see Elliot Granger." I got a letter." Her eyes narrowed, but she nodded. "One moment." She made a quick phone call, then looked back at me. "Mr. Granger will see you now. 4th floor, conference room C." I took the elevator up, my heart thudding in my chest. The door opened, and a tall man with salt and pepper hair extended his hand. "Dare Harper?" "Yes, sir. Elliot Granger." "Welcome. Come in, have a seat." The conference room had a panoramic view of the bay. I tried not to stare, but it was mesmerizing. Granger handed me a glass of water, then sat across from me. "I've heard a lot about you," he began. "Your work on lithium-ion efficiency is impressive. We're always looking for innovators who can push the boundaries." I cleared my throat. "About that, I'm no longer with Voltix. They fired me." Granger didn't look surprised. "We know. That's why we're reaching out to you directly. We believe your ideas shouldn't be buried just because of some corporate fallout. We want to discuss a new project, one that aligns with your original vision." My mind raced. "But Voltix owns my patents." Granger smiled. "Patents are one thing. People are another. We're more interested in you, your drive, your creativity. We want to give you the resources to explore what Voltix couldn't." I couldn't believe it. After months of feeling worthless, someone actually valued my ideas. What's the project? I asked cautiously. He leaned forward. We're developing a new power storage system, something revolutionary. We need someone who thinks beyond the usual. Someone like you. I didn't have the words. The man who had just been sleeping in a tent was now being offered a chance to work with one of the most innovative companies in the world. I nodded, trying not to let my excitement show. I'm in. Granger smiled. Good. Let's change the world. I left Tesla headquarters that day feeling like I was walking on air. For the first time in months, I felt like I had a purpose again. I sat in my old Honda Civic in the parking lot, staring at the Tesla logo gleaming in the sunlight. Was this really happening? Or was I just a desperate guy clinging to the last shred of hope? As I started the car, my phone buzzed. It was an unknown number, and Derek? It's Granger. Just wanted to let you know. We've arranged a temporary apartment for you in Fremont. We'll cover the rent and expenses while we work out the details. You'll be reporting directly to me, and I'll send you the address via text. I couldn't hide my surprise. That's really generous. Thank you. Granger chuckled. We invest in people, Derek. See you tomorrow at 9 a.m. sharp. I hung up and slumped back into the driver's seat, the reality finally sinking in. Tesla wasn't just giving me a job. They were giving me a second chance. I punched the steering wheel lightly, letting out a triumphant yell. I couldn't remember the last time I felt this alive. I checked the address Granger had sent. The apartment was just a few blocks away. When I pulled up, I couldn't believe it. It was a modern, furnished studio in a sleek high-rise. The lobby had polished marble floors, and a security guard greeted me with a smile. "Mr. Harper, right?" he said. "Welcome. Your keys are at the desk." The elevator doors opened to the 7th floor, and I found apartment 702. Inside, everything was spotless and new, a cozy living space with a view of the bay. I dropped my duffel bag on the floor and laughed. Just yesterday, I was living in a tent by a lake. Now, I had a bed, a kitchen, and even a balcony. I grabbed a beer from the stock fridge and stepped outside. The view was breathtaking, the Golden Gate Bridge in the distance. As I took a sip, memories of Voltic's crashed back. How Jason and I used to dream of having offices like Tesla's. Now, he was probably riding high as CEO, while I was trying to rebuild from scratch. I had just sat down when my phone rang again. This time, it was a number I recognized, Maggie, my ex-girlfriend. We hadn't spoken since the fallout at Voltic's. I hesitated, but answered. Derek. Her voice was cautious, like she wasn't sure it was really me. "Hey, Maggie. I heard about Tesla," she said. "Some of the guys at Voltic's are talking about it. Yeah, it's new. Just happened today." She paused. "I'm happy for you. You deserve it." Hearing those words from her hit harder than I expected. Maggie had always believed in me, even when I doubted myself. Losing her had been a consequence of the company spiraling out of my control. "Thanks," I said quietly. "So, are you back in Seattle?" she asked, a hint of hope in her voice. "No, I'm in Fremont now. They set me up with an apartment." "Oh," she hesitated, and I knew it was coming. "Derek, I know it's been a while, but maybe we could talk sometime? You know, about everything." I didn't know how to respond. Part of me wanted to say yes, but another part knew that going back meant reopening old wounds. "Maybe," I replied. "Let me get settled here first." "Of course. Take care, Derek." The call ended, and I stared at my phone, wondering if getting my life back on track meant revisiting the past or leaving it behind for good. The next morning, I arrived at Tesla headquarters with a mix of nerves and excitement. The receptionist, a guy named Tim with a contagious smile, led me to the innovation lab. Granger was already there, talking to a group of engineers. When he saw me, he waved me over. "Derek, meet the team. This is Erin, our lead chemist, and Marco, head of systems integration." Erin, a petite woman with fierce blue eyes, gave me a firm handshake. "I've read your papers on lithium-ion efficiency. Impressive work." Marco, a tall guy with a thick Boston accent, smirked. "Yeah, if it really works." Heard a lot of theories that fall flat when it comes to scaling. I took the jab in stride. That's the challenge, right? We innovate, we fail, we learn. I'm here to make sure it doesn't fall flat. Granger seemed pleased. Good. We're working on a high-capacity battery for commercial fleets. We need it to charge faster and last longer without overheating. Your efficiency model could be the missing piece. He handed me a tablet displaying their current data. I skimmed through the numbers, and my brain instantly went into problem-solving mode. The charge retention wasn't the issue. It was the cooling mechanism. I looked up. You're pushing too much current without heat dispersion. You'll need a dual-phase cooling system with real-time thermal regulation. Aaron raised an eyebrow. We considered that, but couldn't find a cost-effective way to implement it. I pulled up a sketch on the tablet. What if we use a graphene-based coolant? It's expensive, but in small amounts, it could significantly reduce heat without adding bulk. Marco scoffed. Graphene? You know how costly that stuff is, right? Granger intervened. If it works, we'll find a way to make it cost-effective. Derek, work with Aaron on the specs. Marco, run some simulations to see if it holds up. As the team dispersed, Granger gave me a nod. I like your instincts. Keep pushing. I couldn't help but smile. It had been so long since someone believed in my ideas instead of shooting them down. I spent the rest of the day in the lab with Erin, brainstorming and testing different configurations. She was sharp, questioning every assumption, but that pushed me to think deeper. At lunch, Marco joined us in the cafeteria, still skeptical but warming up. So, Derek, you really think this graphene cooling can handle the output? If we balance the conductivity ratio. Yeah, it's a gamble, but it's better than dealing with battery fires. He smirked. Fair point. I just don't want to see another prototype go up in smoke. That night, back in the apartment, I couldn't sleep. My mind was buzzing with possibilities. I pulled out my old sketchbook, the one I used back at Voltix when ideas hit me at random times. I made a list of potential graphene compounds that could work with lithium-ion cells, annotating possible flaws. For the first time in months, I didn't feel like a failure. I wasn't the guy who lost his company. I was a guy who still had something to prove. As I looked out at the city lights, I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't done building. Not yet. The next few weeks at Tesla were a blur of equations, simulations, and brainstorming sessions. Aaron and I became an unspoken team, bouncing ideas off each other with an energy I hadn't felt in years. Marco remained skeptical, but grudgingly started to respect my ideas when our early models showed promising results. I spent most nights in the lab, tweaking the cooling prototype, running tests, and sketching out improvements. Aaron often stayed late too, bringing takeout from the taco truck down the street. We'd eat on the workbench, surrounded by wires and circuit boards, talking about anything but work, music, movies, her obsession with hiking. For a while, it felt like I was back in the early Voltix days, building something from nothing. One evening, as we wrapped up a successful test, Aaron leaned back and looked at me with a curious smile. "You don't talk much about your past," she said, wiping her hands on a rag. "Just that you got pushed out of Voltix. I guess I'm curious. What happened?" I hesitated. I hadn't really opened up about it to anyone at Tesla. I wasn't sure I wanted to relive that betrayal. But Aaron had earned my respect, and maybe I needed to say out loud to finally let it go. I took a deep breath. Jason and I started Voltix in a tiny office in Seattle. We were nobodies with big dreams. After our first patent got picked up, the money started rolling in. That's when things changed. The board wanted safe, reliable growth. I wanted to innovate, push boundaries. Jason sided with them. They voted me out. Aaron looked thoughtful. That must have hurt. Yeah, more than I thought it would. I didn't just lose a company. I lost a friend. I didn't see it coming. 1 minute, we were celebrating a new contract, and the next, I was out on the street. It broke something in me. She was quiet for a moment. "You ever think about going back?" "You know, fighting for what's yours." I shook my head. It's not mine anymore. Even if I could get it back, it wouldn't be the same. Jason's running the show now. It's his problem, not mine. Aaron gave me a sympathetic smile. Sometimes letting go is the hardest part. But Maybe it's not about getting it back. Maybe it's about proving you're more than what they took from you. I hadn't thought about it that way before. I was so wrapped up in what I lost that I never considered who I could become without it. The breakthrough came a week later. After a dozen failed attempts, the cooling system finally stabilized the battery output. The graphene-based coolant wasn't just efficient. It was revolutionary. I looked at the data on the screen and couldn't help but shout, "Holy crap, it works." Erin rushed over, eyes wide. "Are you serious?" I showed her the graphs, the stable temperature curve. She grabbed my arm, excitement lighting up her face. "Derek, this is huge." "We did it." Marco wandered in mid-yawn, and I shoved the tablet in his face. His sleepy expression turned to shock. "You're kidding me. You actually pulled it off." Granger came in a few minutes later, summoned by Erin's text. He reviewed the data, nodding slowly. "Impressive. You've managed to increase charge efficiency by nearly 30% without overheating. That's a game changer." His approval was all I needed. We were back in the game. The next few days were a whirlwind. Granger arranged a demo for the higher-ups, and Erin and I worked around the clock to perfect the presentation. Marco helped refine the cooling unit, suggesting a few modifications that made the system more compact. The morning of the demo, I stood in the conference room, looking out at the gathering crowd. Executives, engineers, even a few Tesla board members, all waiting to see if the wild card hire could actually deliver. My stomach churned. Granger patted my shoulder. "You ready?" I nodded, even though my hands were trembling. I'd pitched before, but this was different. This was my shot at redemption. Erin set up the prototype, and Marco ran the visual displays. I stepped up to the podium, cleared my throat, and started talking about the problem we'd faced: battery overheating during high-capacity charging. I explained how traditional cooling methods couldn't keep up without sacrificing efficiency. Then I introduced the graphene-based coolant and its real-time thermal regulation. When I unveiled the data, there was a murmur of approval. One of the executives raised a hand. "Is the cost of graphene worth the efficiency boost?" I was ready for this. By using microlayer graphene in key points rather than saturating the entire system, we've cut costs by 60% compared to standard application methods. It's efficient and affordable for commercial use. There were nods of approval. Granger shot me a subtle thumbs up. After the demo, Granger pulled me aside. "You nailed it. They're on board. We'll start scaling production next month." I couldn't help but grin. I'd done it. Not just survived, but succeeded. That evening, Erin, Marco, and I went to a local dive bar to celebrate. Marco even admitted I'd proven him wrong. Erin kept raising toasts to new beginnings and wouldn't let me pay for a single drink. As the night wore on, I found myself thinking about Jason. I wondered if he'd heard about the demo or if he was too busy steering Voltix down whatever safe path he'd chosen. I didn't feel bitter anymore, just curious. Maybe Erin was right. I was proving I was more than what I lost. Back at the apartment, a little buzzed and happier than I'd been in months, I noticed I had a new message. I opened it, expecting something from Granger or one of the engineers. Instead, it was from Jason. "Hey, Derek, heard about the Tesla breakthrough. Impressive stuff. We should talk." I stared at the screen, unsure how to feel. A part of me wanted to ignore it, but another part was curious. What did he want? An apology? A collaboration? I typed a short reply. "Let's meet. You pick the place." I wasn't sure where this would lead, but for once, I didn't feel afraid. I wasn't the same person who left Seattle with nothing but a tent and a duffel bag. I was stronger now, and for the first time, I was building something on my own terms. As I lay down to sleep, I couldn't help but feel a sense of closure washing over me. Maybe Jason wanted to bury the hatchet, or maybe he needed something from me. Either way, I was ready to face him. I was done running from the past. The future was mine to shape, and for the first time in a long while, I was looking forward to it. I agreed to meet Jason at a coffee shop in Palo Alto. It was one of those hip places with reclaimed wood tables and overpriced cold brews. I arrived early, feeling the familiar knot in my stomach. This wasn't just a meeting, it was a reckoning. Jason walked in a few minutes later, looking sharper than I remembered. Same confident stride, same calculating gaze. He spotted me and gave a tight smile. "Derek," he said, extending his hand. I shook it, unsure whether to feel angry or relieved. "Jason." We sat down, and there was an awkward silence. Finally, he spoke. "I heard about the Tesla breakthrough. Congrats. That's huge." I nodded. "It's a start." He hesitated, tapping his fingers on the table. "I came here because I think we made a mistake at Voltix." I raised an eyebrow. "We?" "Okay, I made a mistake," he admitted. "After you left, things didn't exactly go as planned. The board's cautious approach killed our momentum. The innovation pipeline dried up. We're not the company we used to be." There it was, the truth I'd wanted to hear for so long. But instead of feeling vindicated, I just felt sad. I remembered our late-night brainstorming sessions, our excitement over the first prototype. Voltix was our dream. Now it was just another struggling startup. "What do you want from me, Jason?" I asked, keeping my tone neutral. He looked down, almost embarrassed. "I need your help. The board's reconsidering their stance on innovation. They want you back, to lead our /&D, to steer us out of this rut. You know the tech better than anyone." I leaned back, processing his words. Months ago, I would have jumped at the chance to reclaim my company. But now, I had Tesla. I had a new project, a new team, and for the first time, I was moving forward without looking back. "I can't do it," I said finally. Jason's shoulders sagged. "You're serious?" I nodded. "I'm building something new. It's different from Voltix, bigger. I can't go back to the way things were." He looked defeated, and I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. But I added, "I'll give you some advice for free. Stop being afraid. Innovation's a risk, but playing it safe will bury Voltix. You taught me that once." Jason gave a rueful smile. "Yeah, I guess I forgot." We talked a little longer, reminiscing about the good times, the late nights, the crazy ideas. By the end, I didn't feel bitter anymore. I just felt free. As I walked out into the crisp California air, I knew I'd made the right choice. Voltix wasn't my story anymore. Tesla was. My life was no longer about proving Jason wrong. It was about proving myself right. I pulled out my phone and texted Erin. "Just met with Jason. Told him no. Let's get back to work." She replied almost instantly. "Damn right. Graphene cooling's waiting for you." I smiled. My past was behind me, and the future was mine to build. As I drove back to Fremont, I couldn't help but feel a sense of peace. Sometimes, hitting rock bottom is just a foundation you need to start again.